IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Wire Talks. I'm Sidharth Bhatia. Many years ago, P.N. Oak, who wanted to revise Indian history and claimed that Christianity as well as the English language, among other things, had Indian origin. One of his other claims was that the Taj Mahal was a Hindu temple called TejoMahalaya. His so-called historic research was dismissed by most academics and serious writers, but it turns out that he has many followers today. Recently, a BJP official in Uttar Pradesh filed a writ with the Allahabad High Court demanding that many of the sealed rooms of the Taj Mahal be opened to check if they held any Hindu idols. A member of the former royal family of Jaipur has now said that the land on which the Taj Mahal stands was owned by our ancestors. So the Taj is once again back in the news. What are the facts as borne out by history and archival material? Rana Safvi, a blogger and historian who has written extensively on the Taj and on the syncretic culture of India, has been talking about the history of the Taj Mahal lately, and she has published 8 books on culture, history and monuments. Her blog, ranasafvi.com, is a repository of culture, literary and historical heritage. Welcome to the Wire Talks, Rana Safvi.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Rana, what do you make of the claims by the petitioner in the court about Hindu idols in sealed rooms in the Taj? Is this a new claim?
This is again a takeoff on what P.N. Oak had already said in the 80s and before that. At that time, we all laughed at him. Nobody took him seriously then, but now apparently the WhatsApp crowd does take him seriously. And since the research is in academic circles and most of the people who read WhatsApp are not very fond of reading books, this has circulated again. This has come up again. And that sense of false victimhood is what is playing on everybody's mind.
It's interesting you should use the word victimhood. I'll come back to that a little later. But at the moment, I wanted to ask you, what about this other claim of Diya Kumari of Jaipur, who says that the land on which the Taj Mahal was built was originally the land of her ancestors and therefore should be reverted to them? Something on those lines.
That she's absolutely right about. The land did belong to her ancestors. It belonged to Raja Man Singh. And at the time when the Taj Mahal was being built in 1631-32, it was Raja Jai Singh who was who had ownership of it. But in lieu of that, he was given 4 Havelis by Shah Jahan, and there is a royal farman that attests that, which is actually in the Jaipur City Palace, Kapardwara collection. All she has to do is get that locked music collection open and check that out. It would be a big favor to everybody.
No, but clearly she knows about this farman. I mean, she can't not know about it if it's lying in her own palace, or rather the museum. So she knows about it, but the timing of it, doesn't it raise some suspicion? She's a BJP MP after all.
You see, another point is that the Kapardwara collection has been sealed for many years now. There is some litigation going on. I'm not aware of the nature of the litigation, but I do know that that Kapardwara collection has been sealed for many years. So it's possible she may not know about it. But I would love to her to take an initiative and get it open, because not only the Taj Mahal Farman, but also the Razamnama and the Persian Ramayan, the translation that Akbar got done of the Mahabharata and Ramayan, are also lying in the Kapardwara collection. I would love it if she got it opened.
No, but are you saying that the land was taken away by Shah Jahan or by the Mughals, or was it, what was the exchange based on?
The reason for the land being chosen was because of the particular location of that Haveli. There were many Mughals and nobles who had riverside mansions on that bend of the Yamuna, but his was the only land where it was on the bend, and so the thrust of the river was the least over there. And since it was such a heavy building, they needed it exactly there. In lieu of that, he was given 4 Havelis that the Farman very clearly states, gives the details of the Havelis also. And though Jai Singh was willing to give it for free, Shah Jahan insisted on giving him compensation. So the claim that there was no compensation is not right.
No. So, are you therefore suggesting that either she knows and she is ignoring, or she doesn't know, in which case she should find out? But there is a fair and square exchange of properties between Raja Jai Singh and Shah Jahan, which can be easily sorted out without going public. Am I right?
Yes, most probably she is not aware.
I think you're being a little charitable here.
Because these papers, there are only two copies of two places where I have come across this Farman. One is in the book by Begli and Desai, another is by Sayyid Tirmizi. These are the only places where I've seen a copy of that. So maybe she hasn't seen them.
And you have.
I have both the books.
As recently as 2018, I think, the Archaeological Society of India said that the Taj was built by Shah Jahan for his wife, and the question of any other provenance doesn't arise, so that matter was dismissed. So then why this again?
In the past few years and months, there's been a flurry of claims regarding various monuments. This is one of them. And this is something that has been playing in WhatsApp circles for a long time, thanks to PNO. And the fact that it is not a temple and it's the Taj Mahal can be borne out by the Taj Mahal itself. The foundation is 17 meters deep. The dome itself is 1200 tons in weight. Where is the question of any previous building, even if there was a Haveli, which is what is mentioned in the Farman? There is no mention of any temple anywhere in contemporary or even European records. And all this is, the documentation is very well translated and collected in Begley and Desai's book, The Illumined Tomb, Taj Mahal, The Illumined Tomb. They've collected all the contemporary evidence of the 17th century. The only contention is on the size of the house, whether it's a manzil, it's a khana, or it's a haveli. That's the only thing that the three people mention it by different names. So which refers to size. There's no mention at all of any temple.
So he had a mansion or a house by the water, Jai Singh or Man Singh before him. And that was taken and then converted to this. Now, why was it done in Agra when Mumtaz Mahal died in Burhanpur?
The initial plans were to build a mausoleum for her in Burhanpur, but the logistics of getting marble all the way there from Makrana were very difficult. So it is basically because of the logistics and the fact that the soil of the Tapti was not conducive to bearing such a heavy load. So that is why, again, I come back to that point that is why this particular location was chosen, because it is only at this point where they could build a structure which could take such a heavy superstructure.
I remember reading somewhere, I think you had said and others have also said, that there are rooms which are sealed. And I read an interview with you in which you say till 78 or something, the rooms were open, but because of the flooding, something on those lines. Am I correct? How many rooms are there?
I have not, don't remember the number of rooms. I have not gone there. I remember the gateways to the side. There are two staircases which lead down to the underground level near the two minars on the riverside. Now, when I was living there as a young teen in Agra, I remember those staircases being open. But for us, they didn't have any curiosity, so I didn't go down. But I do know people who went down and who've described it to me. One of them is Amita Beg, who was leading a conservation effort in the Taj Mahal as director of World Monument Fund. And she went into those rooms with the ASI officials, that is Archaeological Survey of India. And she says they're beautiful painted corridors, and that's all they are. And it's very obvious that they were meant for the royal family. And Ebba Koch has also described these rooms in her book. She calls them that they are arches which would have opened, arcaded rooms which would have opened out onto the river once upon a time. Now they are bricked up. R. Nath also describes this in his book, The Immortal Taj Mahal, where he also in 1969 he did his PhD on the Taj Mahal, and he was also involved in obviously must have gone down into the rooms, because he describes them also and says that there are these rooms there. Nobody talks of anything else except that these rooms were meant for the royal family, because Shah Jahan came to visit the mausoleum down the river route from Agra fort. And he would enter from a door which is now got silted up, which is on the northern wall, to the left of the northern wall, and it can be seen in paintings and archival photographs. He would enter through that and he would rest in these rooms.
So there are archival photographs, and there is no mention in any of the literature, in the academic work, in the conservation work, no mention anything about idols.
Nothing. There's no mention of any idol, any temple anywhere. And even ASI has gone to court to say that there was no temple.
Some rooms are sealed, but there is no question you are saying of any kind of idol there. Am I right?
Yes. The rooms that are sealed maybe because of some structural problems, and there were cracks that developed in the tomb as early as 1652 in the rooms underground. So they may have been sealed off for some structural reason.
And some rooms were sealed after the floods.
The rooms haven't been sealed after the floods. The entrance has been closed off, cordoned off.
Okay, got it.
The rooms are still open because Amita Beg went into those rooms sometime in 2000 something.
Oh, as recently as that.
As that, yes.
Yeah. Now, the Allahabad High Court did not take too much time in checking out this petition. And in fact, my impression was that they ridiculed the petitioner by saying that you can't keep bringing these things to us, and then one day you'll say open the rooms of the judges. So clearly that was a little bit of fun they were having, their lordships. But you think this is going to stop?
See, this has been happening so often. We keep hearing that, groups have gone in who want to recite do some puja there. They have gone there with some orange flags. This has been happening a lot in the past 7-8 years. So I don't know whether it will stop or it will not stop, but definitely we need to educate the people about what this Taj Mahal is all about. And that there was never any mention of any temple. There is no temple, there is no idol, at least in the premises of the Taj Mahal itself. There is one below that near the Ghat, where there is a Ghat, there are temples there. There is a temple outside the Taj Mahal called, I think, the Sehra Ghat, on the Sehra Ghat, but nothing inside the Taj Mahal.
No, so I think you are being over optimistic when you say educate, because for the last, at least from the last 70 years and perhaps the last 150 years, everyone has been taught that it was a monument to love made by Shah Jahan. And then there are a lot of angles to it. There is poetry, there is ghazals, there is commentary on how, and there are fables on how these sculptors' hands were cut off and all that kind of thing, but all centering around this one issue. So what more education can you give?
I don't know how to combat the WhatsApp forward, but I'm trying my best by putting in I call it the daily dose of Taj trivia, which I'm putting out on Instagram and on Twitter, that maybe someone will read and realize that hands were not cut off. That is for one. And this kind of demonization of Shah Jahan and, the fact that they could have possibly broken a temple to build this tomb on. This is what we have to create awareness about, that both of them are wrong. The same team that built the Taj Mahal went on to build the Red Fort and the Jama Masjid in Delhi.
We'll be right back after this short break.
What is the workplace, and how does your gender and body affect your right at work? Hey, I'm Priya Mirza, and on the Longest Constitution podcast, we critically examine the vision of the Indian Constitution and laws. In season 1, we looked at sex, gender, sexuality in India, and the landmark judgments which transformed our rights as citizens in this country. In season 2, we discussed the laws which shape the workplace and examine how ability, competence, and merit impact us, and much more. Join me, Priya Mirza, every Wednesday only on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all the major podcast streaming platforms.
Welcome back to the Wire Talks.
Okay, so the question of even hands being cut off is a little bit of an exaggeration.
If you just think of it practically, who else but an emperor could have had the money to build another Taj Mahal? So where would even if they had not cut the hands, or to take that argument that the emperor cut the hand so that they can't build another Taj Mahal, who could have afforded it?
Isn't there supposed to be a legend about another black Taj Mahal across the
No,
river?
that's again some bizarre gossip which was started by a European called Tavernier. That part where they say is the black Taj Mahal was supposed to be the Mehtab Bagh is now proven to be part of the Char Baghs complex of Taj Mahal itself, and that is where Shah Jahan would often come and sit and watch the Taj Mahal or the Roza-e Munawwara.
Rana, doesn't all this, we can laugh and we can ridicule and we can say WhatsApp and all that, but doesn't all this cause some kind of harm?
It causes harm to the monument, of course, in the sense of that the hype around it, the gossip around it definitely spoils, gives the wrong vibes, and it also is very exhausting. Now the past few days I've only been working on this. I've left all my work and I'm only working on the Taj Mahal, and to prove that no, it is not a temple, it is not it was nothing was demolished here, the hands were not cut. So it's a lot of scholars, a lot of scholarship that could be utilized in other work is being now spent on this. So is the time of many other people. Like the court itself, the court had to, there are so many urgent cases to be heard, but the court had to hear this PIL.
Where do you think this Jaipur claim will go?
The Jaipur claim cannot go anywhere because there is documentary evidence that the Farman is there. Even if the Farman is locked, the actual Farman is locked inside the Kapardara collection, there are facsimile of it all over the place. I have put so many of them on internet.
So there is sufficient evidence,
yes,
in scholarship as well as primary documents to say that there was a fair and square exchange
yes,
of properties, and Shah Jahan insisted on 4 Havelis being given. And so that should end right there.
That should end there. Also, the Kachwahas had a very long relationship with the Mughals, and
Correct.
they were related to them by marriage. So, where is the question of this kind of this chal kapat being used with them? If somebody would have protested much before.
All
Why
these
protest?
years, this claim has not come up.
Never.
So again, the timing makes one feel somewhat wary of the entire thing. So now there are claims about the Qutub Minar also.
Yes.
So where is all this heading?
I have no idea where it's heading. Again, like Qutub Minar is so well documented all the way from the top to the bottom. It's got inscriptions detailing who has built it and who is the architect, which of the sultans built it in which year. So all that is very well documented inside the Taj Mahal. Yes, the temples that were broken were used for making the Qubbatul Islam Mosque or the Qubbatul Islam Mosque, the Jami Masjid of Mehroli. That has been made after the breaking of temples. 27 Jain, mainly Jain temples and Hindu temples were broken, and the mosque was made from the spolia of that. So that part of it is correct. But the Qutub Minar is not a Vishwastam. It was made as a victory tower.
There are engravings of the Quran on the Taj Mahal also.
Yes.
So that clearly suggests something.
And those are all, the theme of, I sometimes feel very sad for Taj Mahal and Shah Jahan, that the place which they built with so much love, and they, the calligraphy that is engraved there, all the Quranic verses are about heaven, doomsday, resurrection, death. And so many things, instead of lying there in peace and waiting for redemption, which is what the whole place was built for, every day there is some controversy disturbing them.
What are the other monuments that have been in the news for these kind of wrong things?
We keep hearing of, I think there is something going on about Varanasi, the Gyanvapi, but again, that is very well documented that yes, that was broken. So there is something going on about that. Every day there is some news about some monument some locality in Delhi are being renamed now.
Yeah, so you see, this is a sensitive question to you, but I think we need to address it. Do you see a pattern somewhere?
Yes, I see this as, the a sense of victimhood that is being very carefully nurtured on WhatsApp, where people who should know better think that since WhatsApp is a one-way communication and it comes from sources that they may be trusting, they think that yes, this is correct. This is not what we were taught in history books. Many a times, what they were not taught in history books is because it was not in history itself. But that they don't realize, they don't question. They say, "Oh, this is what the WhatsApp says. This must be correct."
So this
So
sense of victimhood that Hindus were suffered at the hand of the Mughals and Muslim invaders, though how Shah Jahan was an invader, I don't know. This sense of victimhood, I think it's quite easy to capture a younger generation which may not be
yes,
so updated on it.
younger and older also. The older generation is also very vulnerable to this. The people who are past retirement age are also very vulnerable to these WhatsApp.
And you see that all around you also.
Yes, I see it around me in everyday life, not just on social media or as far as history is concerned, but it's there everywhere. The sense of the sense that the Muslims are invaders. First of all, Babur was an invader, but after them, Akbar onwards, they got married to people from India, mostly Rajputs. And by the time it came down to Shah Jahan, they were already more than halfway Rajput. And then you see, come to 1857, which has been called as the first war of independence by Indian independence by Savarkar himself. And you see all the rulers, whether it is whoever they are, irrespective of their religion or their region, they're fighting the fight against the East India Company under the banner of Bahadur Shah Zafar. So if this kind of victimhood was there in those days, they would have wanted the East India Company to remain. Why would they have come and asked Bahadur Shah Zafar that lead us under your banner against the Firangs? So obviously there is no truth to the fact. There may have been, of course, there would have been periods of when there was friction. There was definitely, the nature of a monarchy is that you have to be very harsh. So not saying that it would have been all hunky-dory for everybody, because monarchs are not known to be very fair or, to be very kind. All monarchies all over the world, whoever they are, have been harsh or have used harsh measures. But more or less, if we see, there have been periods of harmony. And there are many researches that have been done that till 1857, there were very few instances of communal writing. So if there was this kind of, what should I say, discrimination against the Hindus by a Muslim, so-called Muslim king, who had so much of Rajput blood in him, his mother, his wife, everybody were Rajputs. So if there was this kind of discrimination going on, why would they have come to him? They would have fought it themselves and not only overthrown the East India Company, they would have said, Lage haath to inko bhi hata do, and they would have removed Bahadur Shah Zafar also, instead of crowning him the Badshah of Hindustan.
So 1857, there was generally some kind of harmony and very few communal riots. And 2022, we have communal disharmony and tensions. So this is a really, instead of getting more modern, we've become, in some ways, we've gone back.
So this is something that was, when after 1857, when the studies were done, I'm forgetting the name of the British historian, but he said that one of the biggest lessons that we have learnt is that Hindus and Muslims, upper and lower classes and all castes, can come together to fight against us. So that is the lesson that they learnt, and that is the lesson that they never forgot. And so you come to the famous, what is called the divide and rule policy.
Yeah, that I've never seen on WhatsApp, that part. So thank you very much, Rana. That was really very, very enlightening, given that there are all kinds of misleading attempts, misleading claims about the Taj Mahal, about the Qutub Minar, about so many other things. It started with the Babri Masjid, and all kinds of claims being thrown around that it was fundamentally a Hindu temple. The land belongs to the Jaipur family. And none of these things are borne out by history. None of these things are borne out by very detailed academic archival work. So thank you, Rana, for enlightening us and giving us a perspective to understand that this is all part of some kind of bogus fake news, to put it mildly. And unfortunately, we live in an era of fake news and WhatsApp forwards. That was Rana Safvi, historian, blogger, writer, and commentator who's been doing seminal work on the Taj. And as she said earlier in this interview, much of her time now goes writing and correcting people on the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is a source of great pride to all of us Indians. So I think it's best left alone as a monument to love by one emperor for his queen.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey. Hello, everybody. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Pesa Vesa, Anupam meets co-founders and co-CEOs of Stockholm, Sitashwa Srivastav and Vinay Bharadwaj. They discuss how global investing is evolving. On Smarter with Sid, Sidharth shares what makes for a great thumbnail on social media. On Ek Chuski Finance, Priyanka shares the secret recipe of return on investment. Is India a deadly country for journalists? Media freedom activist Daniel Bastard shares his take on the Wire Talks with Sidharth. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna tells us how we can overcome the bad habit of unnecessarily interrupting a conversation. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, we've been doing a series of profiles of people within the office, so do check that out for sure. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any platforms you're listening on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. We have a page on our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, with a list of all our channels. We're also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you, the listener, responds to the advertising on our network. And also, we just want to know a little bit more about you. We would really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It will really help us build some better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, SBI Life Insurance and Jupiter, a digital banking app.